8:40. Will that work for you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
of you, I need to hear from all the hostelers, please. Or you all are ordering out or parting out today after 9.
8:40 will work fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll do that. I'll try and leave you 20 minutes before today. Okay. All right. In the last session, we talked about working capital. We left it in its initial part, if you all remember. You all are there with me. Do you all remember the working capital part?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you brief the other lectures? This is my first time.
Who's talking? Is that Siddhant?
Yes.
Somehow I can't hear you all. Give me a minute, please. Yeah, Siddhant, can you come again? Can you hear me, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Siddhant, you were saying something?
Ma'am, can you brief me about previous lectures? I was not present at that time.
So this is your first lecture. So we are already done with 4 sessions and today is the 5th session, Siddhant.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. So what I can do for you is you can get into the WhatsApp group and probably you can get the PPTs which I've shared for the past 4 sessions from someone.
Ma'am, can you please pin the WhatsApp group link in the chat?
Yeah, I will do that. I will do that by the end of the session. I will do that for everyone. Right. And get in contact with anyone, any of your classmates, and just get in touch with whatever has been happening. And if still you have any confusions, you can come up to me and we can discuss that about the previous sessions. Will
Okay,
that
thank you
work
very
for
much.
you? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So would you all want me to start working capital from the first slide itself? Because I was on the 4th or 5th slide. So do you all remember what working capital was all about, or should we start it all over again?
And please again.
Okay. Guys, I don't need any background noises, right? So if anyone is doing anything else while listening to my session, then you're being unfair to yourself. So please don't do that. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So we start with our 5th session today. This was supposedly our 4th session. That's working capital management, right? So what I explained to you is, as the name suggests, working capital is the capital needed for the working of a company. Now, working of a company में fixed assets भी चाहिए होते हैं. We need fixed assets like land, building, machinery. Those are all fixed assets. But what are the assets? What is the kind of capital which you need for the day-to-day operations of the company? Right? So your daily operations, what all is needed for those daily operations comprise of our working capital. Now, let's look at it. Let's just look at that. There are 2 kinds of assets. The first ones are the fixed assets, which definitely don't form a part of our working capital, right? And the other ones are current assets. Now, what are fixed assets? Let's first see those. Fixed assets का सबसे बड़ा feature होता है, they're long-term assets, right? So if I say that machinery, building, land, they're all my long-term assets. ये मैंने last lecture में भी आपके साथ discuss किया था कि why are they long-term? Because 1, they are irreversible decisions. 2, they involve high value. They're of high value. A lot of money is involved in these decisions, right? So I give you an example that, if today you purchase a land, 2 days later or a week later, you realize that, the location of this land is not right. So you would not be able to reverse the decision in a day or two, right? It's going to take a time to reverse that decision. So that is what fixed assets are, and they cannot be converted to cash easily. Again, the same example, you cannot go sell the land in the market in a day's time span. It's going to take time, right? Then we have current assets. Now, current assets are cash and cash equivalents, right? So these are the assets which are short-term assets, which can be converted into cash at any given point of time. Now, you can see the examples written under it. That is cash, your bank balance, whatever is in your bank or your savings account, or you have any deposits in the form of fixed deposits, recurring deposits, or you have any investments, or you have any kind of inventory in your can anyone please see who's messaging in the finance group?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So current assets also include inventory. Inventory is what? Inventory is the stock which you have in hand, right? So say suppose I manufacture packaging boxes, right? So अगर मेरे पास मेरे warehouse में 5,000 boxes की inventory पड़ी है, what is that for me? That is hard cash. Once it's sold in the market, that's hard cash for me. It's sold in the market and I'm going to earn revenue out of it. So these are current assets. Now, the main differentiating part between fixed assets and current assets is long-term and short-term. Now you reply this answer. Why do you think are current assets not for part of working capital? Why are current assets part of working capital and not fixed assets part of working capital? I told you working capital is required for the daily operations of the company. Anyone who can? Yes, please, Satuti.
It's because of the liquidity, because it can be easily converted into cash, and we need the cash for daily operations. Whereas fixed asset, it cannot be easily converted into cash.
Right. Very well said. Everyone understands the meaning of liquidity, right? Is there anyone else like Siddhant who's here for the first time? No. So that's just Siddhant. Right. So that is the main part, the liquidity part. Why are current assets the part of working capital? Because they're more liquid. You can convert them to cash whenever you need, right? So that is why they are part of working capital. Now we go further and we find out the major differences between fixed assets and current assets.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could this class be recorded, please, since many of the students are not present in the class due to some.
Could this class be recorded? Right. So, 1 second. Yeah, okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So fixed assets. Fixed assets are the assets in which time plays a very, very bigger role, right? That is why we use discounting techniques and compounding techniques. Why? Because the life of these assets are more than 1 year, right? So the life of such assets vary from 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Whereas in current assets, time doesn't play a major role because unki jo life hai, that starts from what, 1 or 2 days to maximum a period of 8 to 9 months, right? So that is why we don't need to take into consideration the value of money. We studied this concept of discount rate, right? In capital budgeting, हमने discount rate net present value का concept किया था, and we understood what is time value of money. So current assets में time value of money doesn't play a role because the life of the asset is very, very small. Now, if a company holds large holdings of fixed assets, like, a company has a huge building or lots of machinery, right? So what do you think? Is it good for the company? Yeah, anyone? Will it be good for the company or will it be waste of money because you're just investing it in fixed assets? Then I would say that it's not getting you anything. Why would you invest in 2 buildings when you just need 1?
it may be helpful in them.
Yes, please. I can't hear you. Can you come again?
Ma'am, it may be helpful in the longer run.
How?
Ma'am, if we are constructing a building now, we have the resources and materials which will be left also, so we can continue to project at a lesser cost than creating one building.
Okay. So, yes, that might be partially right. But, whenever you have an extra piece of land or something, you can always earn out of it. Now, how can you earn out of it? You can give it out on rent, or, you can give it out on lease. You can always earn something or the other out of that piece of land. And if you have more machinery, that means, you can increase your production levels, you can expand, you can diversify. Right? So that is why if a company has more of fixed assets, it's always good for the company. Whereas if a company has more of current assets, what do you think is going to happen? The answer is in front of you.
It would be more flexible for the company.
How will it be more flexible for the company?
Like, for example, if they get to know they have like better equipment, more efficient equipment, then they can like easily change the equipment.
No, I'm talking about current assets. What if the company has large holdings of current assets? How is it going to help the company? What do you think is going to happen in the company? If the company has, say, suppose double the amount of current assets needed, is it going to increase the profitability of the company? Is it going to increase the liquidity and efficiency of the company? Think. Yeah, Nishkarsh.
Ma'am, it can be helpful if the stock prices are going down, then the company can put its assets in the stock market and increase its price, thereby helping the company.
No, I didn't get your point, Nishkarsh. How is it related to the stock price?
Ma'am, if the company is having good cash in hands, then it can buy other companies also, so as to increase its work area and all, and also buy other company shares and invest also.
No, not justified. Anyone else who've been raising their hands? Anyone else? You can speak up.
Ma'am, maybe it's possible that when you have a lot of current assets, it's possible that you can sell them. So if you're like not being profiting at all, so it's possible that you could sell them off and not be at that much of a loss. But also, like at the end, you can always buy more current assets later, because you need storage space and other stuff like that for current assets. So I guess it's not as good.
It's not as good. Right. Yeah, Satuti.
I think it depends on the demand. If we have a higher demand of a product, so it's good for us to have current asset, because it will increase the liquidity, as I said earlier, because we need to have a working capital. We need to operate things. So it depends. It's not good also, and it's not bad also.
No, but I have a point. I mean, if I have lots of money invested in my current assets, which is not actually required, I'm just, holding on to inventory, thinking that, demand might increase or might not increase. And I am, unnecessarily putting money in my FDs and, investing in some short-term investments. Do you think I'm parking my money somewhere from where I'm not getting much of return? And rather than doing that, I should reinvest it in my company and increase my profitability. That money, try and understand that money is lying idle in my bank account, right? I just need half of it, but double the amount of money is lying in my bank account idle. Right? Not giving me any interest, nothing at all. I'm just talking about cash. So that is my liquidity, right? That's how my liquidity is going to increase. Now that money is not earning me anything. what if I invest that money, reinvest that money in my business, or I invest it in some mutual funds who have maturity period of more than 2 years. At least they're going to earn something for me. My profitability is going to increase, right? So that is why we always say that you should never have excessive current assets and you should never have inadequate current assets. Why? Because both the sides, either you're going to compromise on the profitability or you're going to compromise on the liquidity. So if you're high up here, your current assets are high up here, this is the adequate point. If your current assets are here, you are compromising with the profitability of the company, because this much of money is lying idle for the sake of your liquidity part, right? And it is not earning you anything. And if your current assets are here, right? So that means ye jo difference hai, ye kahan, you're not able to meet your liabilities. This much difference. Current assets itne chahiye, but aapke paas itne hain. So this much of difference, that means you're not able to meet up your obligations. That means your credit rating is not good. Your credit worthiness is not good. So what are you going to do? You're going to compromise on your liquidity. You're going to compromise on your solvency. Solvency is what? Solvent company. You all understand what is solvency? I need to hear from you.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, no
No,
one
ma'am.
knows solvency. So solvency is, when I say that, it brings down your solvency, that means solvency is kind of existence of the company. आपके debts बढ़ते जाएंगे, आप धीरे धीरे bankrupt होते जाओगे, right? So your solvency is going to decrease. Whereas if you are, paying your debts on time, paying your loans on time, that means you've got a good solvency position. So that is directly related to your credit worthiness. That is another name for credit worthiness, I would say. That is also solvency. Understood, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Guys, anywhere you feel that you're not able to understand, please stop me. Again, why? Because next session we start with the accounts module, and ये fixed assets, current assets, working capital, सब कुछ मैंने उसमें करवानी है. So this session is entirely linked with the first session of our accounts module, right? So make sure you 100% here. Now, as discussed, fixed assets cannot be adjusted in short run according to sales. So let's take an example that I am a jacket manufacturing company and jackets ka season sirf winters mein hota hai. It's just what, 2-3 months, right? So what I do is, as a jacket manufacturing company, I get a machinery of 20 machines, because I believe that, the demand for my product is quite a bit. And this is what I'm talking about is in the month of November. Right now, I get 20 machines worth rupees 40 lakhs. I install them and I do really well till the month of February. The moment 1st of March comes, my business starts to go down. And by the 15th of March, it is completely thup. I mean, there's hardly any activity happening. Why? Because the season has gone. Now, do you think I will be able to sell those 20 machines worth rupees 40 lakhs?
No, ma'am.
And even if I
No,
sell
ma'am.
machines worth rupees 40 lakhs, I bet you're not going to sell them for more than 20-25 lakhs, right? Even if luckily, if you find a seller for those buyer for those machines, you are going to lose more money in comparison to the money you've earned in your season period, right? So that is why we say that, fixed assets cannot be adjusted in the short run according to your sales. Whereas current assets can be adjusted, right? Your inventory can be adjusted. आप अपने season के period में अपनी inventory ज़्यादा रखो. जो आपका season नहीं है जब आपका, आप उसमें inventory मत रखो. And you may diversify into some other products, or you may put in effort into some research and development of some production of some new product, or you can do number of things. But current assets can always be adjusted. Your cash can be adjusted, your short-term investments can be adjusted, your inventory can be adjusted, but your fixed assets cannot be adjusted. So that these are the main points of difference between the management of fixed assets and current assets. Then we have these two concepts of gross working capital and net working capital. Now, the name suggests gross and net. These are the two main words. Now, before this, let us understand, you all know by now that what are current assets. Now, what are current liabilities? जैसे current assets हैं जो हमारे पास हैं, the things, the money which we own, the cash which we own, the inventory which we own, right? So current liabilities is the money which you have to pay. Like say, suppose, I bought raw material for my product from a supplier on credit. And I said that, okay, I'm going to give you this money in a period of 90 days, right? So what are those? Period of 90 days is what, 3 months, right? Short-term liability. So what is that? That is my current liability. So current liability is again short-term in nature. So wherever current comes into play, it is short-term in nature. Wherever fixed comes into play, it is long-term in nature. So current liabilities में मेरे आ जाते हैं creditors. Creditors is जिसको मैंने पैसे देने हैं, जिससे मैंने उधार पे पैसे लिए हुए हैं 2 महीने के लिए, 3 महीने के लिए, or I've taken loan from bank for what, 6-7 months. Those loans of very small low maturity periods, right? Then our bills payable. Bills payable is what I just talked about, that I took raw material from my supplier and I asked him that I'm going to pay the money after 90 days, right? Or you have some outstanding expenses. पिछले महीने का बिजली का बिल नहीं दिया क्योंकि पैसे नहीं थे. So what is that? That's your liability. You're supposed to pay to the electricity board, right? Or you have some outstanding rent. You couldn't pay the rent because you didn't have enough cash. So that is all outstanding, which is yet to be paid, which is due, but yet to be paid. That is outstanding, right? So it's due, but you have to pay it. Credit card ka jab bhi bill aata hai, if you all must have seen, whenever you get your credit card statement or you get your electricity bill or you get your mobile phone or landline bill, you see over there, it's written outstanding amount. Outstanding amount is due and yet to be paid, right? So that is what, that is your liability. Okay. So all the outstanding expenses, bills payable, creditors, all these are part of current liabilities. अब current liabilities में एक बहुत important point आता है, those are provisions, right? So हम provisions क्यों बनाते हैं? हम provisions बनाते हैं कि tax के लिए provision बनता है कि you have to pay tax, or there is a kind of provision where you haven't paid tax but you've kept it for it कि इतना tax मुझे देना है, वो आप provision की form में अपनी current liabilities में रख देते हो. So that is also a kind of outstanding tax which is due and you have to pay it, or which is going to be due in a span of next 3 months, but आपने पहले ही उसको लग करके रख दिया कि ये मेरी liability आने वाली है, तो वो आपका सीधा current liability में चला जाता है. Now a lot of companies, they give their employees allowances like travel allowance or medical allowance, these allowances, and it is the right of the employers, right? So I am sure Thapar also does. Thapar University does. All the corporates, all the institutions do that, right? So that is my as an employee's money. So वो university की books में कहाँ पे जाएंगी? Liability में, because that university at some point of time in the coming future owes me that money, that may be in form of medical allowance or anything. और वो part किसके अंडर आता है? वो part provisions के अंडर आता है current liabilities में. I'm going to show you a real balance sheet. मैं आपको सब कुछ दिखाऊंगी, बैलेंस शीट क्या होती है, कहाँ पे क्या जाता है, current liabilities, current assets. I'm going to show you everything. But for now, try and absorb all these things and understand the technical part of it. And later we'll understand that financial statements में ये कहाँ जाती हैं. ठीक है? Then we go further and we talk about current assets management. Now, वो हमने अभी भी किया है कि current assets excessive हो, inadequate हो या adequate हो. How is it going to impact the company? Now, it can impact the company only in format of its, in terms of its liquidity, profitability, and liquidity and solvency and profitability, right? I discussed just with you 2 minutes back. Now, I want you to give me this answer. Think about it for 2 minutes and explain it to me. All the 3 pointers you have to explain to me. I think I explained it to you pretty well. I want you to explain it first, and then I'll explain it to you all. Anyone, I want you to raise your hand. Anyone else except for Statuti and Isha? Yeah, Nishkarsh.
Ma'am, in the current assets management, we can say that if we have excessive investment, then we are losing on the profits for the company. If we have the inadequate investment, then we are losing on our liabilities. And if we have the adequate, means we must always have adequate investment.
No, how are we losing
for
onto
the
our
current assets?
liabilities? How are we losing onto our liabilities and inadequate investment?
Ma'am, because we don't have enough money to pay our dues and DAs and other TAs that you have talked about.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? Come on, guys.
Ma'am, if we talk about excessive investment, the extra money that we have put in the company is just lying idle, and it's not generating anything for us in return, and we are losing on our profitability over there. If we talk about inadequate investments, as Nishkarsh just said, we'll be losing on our liabilities, as in we'll not be able to pay the different expenses, the work which occur monthly, bills and salaries and everything, which decreases our solvency in the market, and our credit score goes low.
Okay. So in adequate investment, we're going to strike a balance between our
Between
profitability
excessive
and
and
liquidity position.
yeah, wherein we'll be able to manage all our expenses while being profitable.
Okay. Yeah, Parv.
Yes, ma'am. In excessive investment, since we investing more, therefore we are um, playing with our profitability at a longer run. Talking about inadequate investment, if our investment will be low, therefore it will generate more debt on us, and sort of damaging our credit. What was it? Our credit score or something like that, and
Credit worthiness.
credit worthiness, and can also it will damage our credit score. Thus, we should have adequate investment so that we can take longer gains from both our profitability, and we don't have inadequate investment or that may lead to our losses.
Okay. So let me take it from here. So excessive investment, as explained by all of you, whoever spoke right now, excessive investment in current assets is like blocking your hard cash or liquid cash, in something which is not giving anything to you, right? So it is always good to maintain only the required levels of current assets. Why? Because the extra cash which you have can be invested somewhere else from which you can earn a lot of more money, and you can be more profitable. Your business can be more profitable. Now, when you talk about inadequate investments in current assets, so if I say that, my requirement of current assets for my business is 10 lakhs, but right now I have 7 lakhs of investments in current assets. That means that gap of 3 lakhs is where I'm lacking. That means वो जो मेरी 3 लाख की liabilities हैं, I won't be able to repay those, right? So I am not losing onto my liabilities is not the right word, first of all, right? I think two of you said that, we are losing onto our liabilities. No, we are not able to meet up our liabilities, right? So in that case, what is happening is my credit worthiness is going down, right? And what will happen? The people in the market are not going to trust me. The market is going to lose trust in me because I'm not paying the money on time. I'm not paying my creditors on time, right? So that is how my credit worthiness is going to go down. So that is why it is always said that you should have just the adequate amount of investments in current assets needed. Why? Because to strike a perfect balance between liquidity and profitability at the same time. Are we clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In between all of you, I am going to give a chance to, I want all of you all to speak up. So a lot of times you will raise your hand. I will not give a chance to few of you to speak up, because the ones who've been speaking very, very frequently, I know that they are listening to me. I want other people to speak up also. But keep raising your hands. That gives me a signal that you all are understanding. Okay. So now there is this concept of net working capital. ये अभी हमने gross working capital किया था. Gross working capital में we have just the current assets, right? That is the gross working capital which is needed. अब वो gross working capital में से अगर हम अपने सारी liabilities जिसको हमने पैसे देने हैं, outstanding amount, or we have to deposit some tax, we have to give some provisions, sorry, not provisions, but we have to give some allowances to anyone, or we have to pay to our suppliers, वो जो भी हैं वो हम सब कुछ दे दें, तो क्या बचता है हमारे पास? हमारा नेट वर्किंग कैपिटल. वो मेरे पास हार्ड कैश हाथ में बचता है, जिसको मैं और चीजों में यूटिलाइज कर सकती हूँ. ओके, अब यहाँ पे yes please.
Can net working capital be also called our profit, like normal net profit?
No, that is not a profit. Let's go back. That is not a profit. We are not accounting for any revenues which are coming out of sales. We are just talking about assets and liabilities, right? So please don't confuse it with what do we call profits. Profits is altogether a different part. I am not talking about profits at all right now. I am just talking about money which is needed for the functioning of the company. वो कंपनी का फंक्शन तो हो रहा है, बट जो रेवेन्यू आ रहा है मैं उसकी बात नहीं कर रही हूँ अभी. All right?
Yeah, got it.
So now we talk about net working capital. Now we say that net working capital is more of a qualitative concept. Now, why is it a qualitative concept? Because I just try and understand that, how much money I have in hand. What is the quality of my working capital like? I mean, do I have a good amount of working capital, or I don't have enough working capital, right? If my current assets minus current liabilities is positive, that means I have good working capital. If my current assets minus current liabilities is negative, that means I have a bad working capital position in my company, right? So that is how the qualitative concept comes into play. Now, it indicates the liquidity position of the firm. It suggests the extent to which working capital can be financed by permanent source of funds. Now, try and understand this point. Now, first of all, agar mere paas, say suppose my company has 10,000 rupees, and 10,000 rupees में से 7,000 I pay out to my creditors, और जो भी मैंने अपनी current liabilities देनी थी, कुछ भी देना था, वो मैंने सब कुछ दे दिया. Now, what 3,000 is left in my hand is my liquidity position, my actual liquidity position. ठीक है, वो मेरी एक्चुअल लिक्विडिटी पोजीशन है. अगर मैं सिर्फ अपने करंट एसेट्स को अकाउंट फॉर करूं, वो मेरी एक्चुअल लिक्विडिटी पोजीशन नहीं है. उसमें से आधे पैसे तो मैंने लोगों के देने हैं, राइट? तो जब वो मैं लोगों के पैसे माइनस कर दूंगी, तो जो मेरे पास आखिर में कैश बचेगा वो मेरी एक्चुअल लिक्विडिटी पोजीशन है. That is why we say that net working capital actually tells you your true liquidity position, and your net working capital should always be positive, because then you have sufficient buffer. You know, at times any uncertainty arises or some problem arises, you should have that cash in hand always. Now, just let's forget about the company. Come to a household. When you talk about your parents, in whichever sense or wherever I have heard, you know, you always withdraw a certain amount of money as your household expense, and the lady of the house gets it, lady of the house or the elders of the house, right? Now, through that, you pay to all your helpers, and you pay to the gardener, and you run your kitchen expenses with it. But I am sure everyone keeps a certain amount of money on the side. Why? Because in case of emergency, any medical emergency arises, or you know, you need to, for that matter, you need to do a party at home, right? So you can always use that buffer in case of emergency, or in case, you know, you feel that you need more money, right? So that is why that buffer is important. So you should always keep that aside, and what that buffer is called is net working capital. Now, negative working capital and excess liquidity is not good for the firm, right? Both the sides. If you have negative working capital, or if you have very high liquidity, by high liquidity I means current assets are shooting up, both are not good. Abhi humne padha, it should be just adequate, right? So there should be a judicious mix of long term and short term assets in a company. Right? Now, the decision of the proportion of short-term and long-term assets, it depends upon whom. Who decides कि कितने long-term assets चाहिए, कितने short-term assets चाहिए? The management decides it. The board of directors or whoever is in the management of the company, they decide it. Right? Now, this is a question for you. Just think about it in technical terms. अब आपको समझ में आ गया working capital क्या है? Now, tell me, what do you think is the difference between the working capital requirement of a manufacturing concern and a service concern? I give you 5 minutes to jot down the points. Draw a line, जैसे हम difference की line बनाते हैं, दो चीजों में अगर difference लिखना है तो we make a table. Write here manufacturing concern and write here service concern. And give me pointers that where all do you need working capital?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Who decides? Is it the management that decides that whether what will be our definition for adequate net working capital, as we talked about earlier?
So look, Amog, you're Amog, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Amog. So this is why I put this question in front of you of manufacturing concern and service concern, because every company has a different set of operations. Now, a car manufacturer would need a higher amount of working capital, whereas a cardboard manufacturing company would need a lower amount of working capital, right? So it all depends upon your manufacturing process. Definitely the management decides it, but it's all the technical detail. मतलब management कोई तुक्का नहीं लगाएगी, they are going to work out the cost part of it, right? उसके ऊपर भी हम आएंगे. You answer this question. All of you just think about these two parts जो मैंने अभी question दिया है आप लोगों को, and then we'll discuss deeper into Amog's point. So is that okay? 5 minutes for this? Yeah, whoever is done can, raise the hand and start with the pointers. Yes, Tasveer.
Ma'am, I think that it is only depend on the nature of business while deciding the working capital. Because as we see that in that as we talk about the trading concern or retail shop, the requirement of working capital is less because the length of functioning cycle is small.
The length of operating cycle. Yeah.
And also the service industry require less working capital because there is not much requirement of working capital unlike manufacturing industry.
Right. Good answer. Yeah, Isha, can I hear from you?
Yes, I think, yeah, I agree with him. Like, I also think that service would have a long investment in working capital than manufacturing. Manufacturing would require more amount of machinery and
Isha,
land, electricity. Well,
one second, Isha. Isha, now that
yes, ma'am.
you're clear that manufacturing concern would need more amount of working capital as compared to a service concern, because manufacturing concern has a whole process to go through for the manufacturing of the products. Could you please
Yes.
outline the pointers as to where all the working capital would be required in a manufacturing concern and in a service concern? You can take 2 minutes to jot down.
Service concern, ma'am, would be training of the employees and repairs, marketing, PR, IT and technical, and in manufacturing it would be more concerned with machinery and land holdings, good big worker payments and good credits across the market.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ma'am, in manufacturing, working capital can be required in repair and maintenance of equipments, in buying of raw material, or in paying and allowances to the workers. Whereas in service, it can be in marketing and other including pay of the person and other mixed expenses.
Right.
Ma'am, can I?
Yeah, Parth.
Ma'am, according to me, manufacturing requires a whole lot of investment in raw materials or maybe or machineries to create certain kind of product. Then service, in service, we it's more related about the transportation or what can we say? It can be transportation or marketing and etc. So definitely, according to me, manufacturing would require more amount of net working capital as compared to service capital.
Perfect. So the major point of difference between a manufacturing concern and a service concern is that, in manufacturing concern, the major chunk of your investment, or I would say your working capital, goes into your raw material and your inventory, right? Whereas when we talk about service concern, most of your working capital would go in, research and development. Now, in most of the cases, research and development can be either, a day-to-day process, or it's a very long-term process. The research is going on for 4 or 5 years. But when you talk about any consultancy firm or some other company, a lot of money goes into research and development. A lot of money goes into training of people. You have to train people for all these service concerns, for all the skills, for all the for being professionals. You have to train them. तो उसमें भी आपकी working capital जाती है, right? But then again, manufacturing concern definitely needs more amount of working capital. Why? Because there is more raw material involved. There is more day-to-day operations involved in the form of electricity. You need more space. Why do you need more space? Because you need to accommodate the machinery, right? You need to have a warehouse to store the inventory or the raw material, right? So definitely more things are needed in a manufacturing concern. So Amol, coming back to your point, I hope you are slightly clear about your question about who decides. I mean, do the management decide of the about the adequate amount of working capital? Yes, they do decide about the adequate amount of working capital depending upon the process, depending upon the kind of production of the product your company is into. You know, if you're an FMCG company, then there's a different amount of working capital required. And if you're a clothing company, there's a different amount of working capital required, right? So that depends from company to company. That depends from the nature of the product which you are producing, right? So if you're producing a luxury product, you are producing what? Pure leather bags, or you're producing cars, उसमें working capital entirely different होगी. ठीक है? Did I make sense to you all till here? Should we go forward?
Excuse me, ma'am, I have a small doubt. Ma'am,
Yeah.
you said that management often decides how what working capital will be taken, etc., etc. Ma'am, however, there are often times when management, for example, says does some sort of what do you call it in sure corruption, etc. So, ma'am, is there yes, ma'am. So, is there any way for us as just entry level or mid level or as an employee to just figure out whether this is happening or not or something like that? Any patterns or something?
Yeah, there are many methods to find that out that we will do in financial statements. So, you know, when you look at an actual financial statement, so your current assets and your current liabilities and your fixed assets all are a part of your balance sheet, right? So there you can slightly figure out that, you know, where the company is going wrong, or are they goofing up something or not, right? And when you analyze these financial statements, there are various ways to analyze these financial statements, as in, you know, you do some ratio analysis, or I'm going to talk about all those analysis part. And through that analysis part, you can, you know, I would say 95% find out that, you know, there is some goofing up going on in the balance sheet or in the financial statements of any company. So that we'll take up in the accountancy part.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we go further and we talk about a very ये आपका concept है, आप engineers का concept है ये actually, operating cycle. How many of you are into mechanical engineering? Anyone? Japteshwar. Japteshwar, what is the operating cycle of a product? Any idea?
Ma'am, can you repeat the question?
What is the operating cycle of any product?
Ma'am, first we have to make the base plan of the product, drawing of the product. Then there is a cost estimation. Then we select different type of materials. Then a prototype is made.
Yeah.
Then testing is done if it is both economically viable, easy to manufacture, everything. Then we go to production. After even market research is done, will it be sold, needed?
Right.
Then it goes to manufacturing.
Okay. So Japteshwar gave you more technical terms of what a operating cycle is. Now, if I give you my financial terms of an operating cycle, I would suggest that how much time does it take for a raw material to be converted into a finished product, और वो finished product को जब आप market में sale करके आगे उससे पैसे कमाते हो, you get revenue out of it, you know, right from the raw material to getting the end revenue, you know, that is my operating cycle. अब Japteshwar ने आपको जो समझाया है, you know, Japteshwar has also talked about very intricate points, you know, you formalize, you have an idea in mind about a product, you do your research and development in that product. So what is that? From the very initial stage till the end, you have a finished product in your hand. That is all the operating cycle. कितना time लगा raw material को उस प्रोडक्ट को फिनिश प्रोडक्ट में फॉर्म करने के लिए, दैट इज द ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट, राइट? Now it says the time duration required to convert sales after conversion of inventory into cash. That is my operating cycle. Now look at this. This would clear all your doubts. So what is that? You acquire the raw material. You find out that, from here I will get the cheapest raw material. You acquire the raw material. You manufacture the product. You've manufactured the product, you have a finished good in hand, you go out in the market and you sell it. And after selling it, what do you get in hand? Revenue. So from the day of, acquiring the raw material till the day of earning revenue out of that final product is your operating cycle. Now, operating cycle can be 7 days, operating cycle can be a year, operating cycle can be, it differs from product to product, from company to company. All right. Are we clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
I need to hear from you all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So next we have is gross operating cycle. अब gross operating cycle में हमारा सारा आता है. सबसे पहले आता है inventory conversion period. Now, inventory conversion period is just linked with the, process involved in the production of that finished product. Raw material to finished product is my inventory conversion period. And when I talk about my debtor conversion period, is the time to collect outstanding amount from customers. Now, let me take it one point at a time. Please put yourself on mute, all of you. Guys, please put yourself on mute. Okay. So gross operating cycle has two parts: inventory conversion period and debtors conversion period. Inventory conversion period contains, when you convert your raw material to work in progress, and that work in progress is converted into a final finished product, right? So that is your inventory conversion period. And after you have finished product in hand and you're selling it in the market, you might sell it on EMIs. You sell it on EMIs, like the buyer has to give you monthly installments. तो वो कितनी देर में आपको आपके फिनिश प्रोडक्ट के सारे पैसे आपकी जेब में आ जाते हैं? When the buyer gives you the final installment, the last installment due, you collect all the outstanding amount from your customers. That can vary, like day 1, you procured raw material. Day 10, it's still in the process. Day 15, you have a finished product in hand. After day 15, on the day 17th, you sold the product in the market. Day 17th, you sold the product, but on EMIs, and those EMIs are going to be finished in a time span of what? 2 months, right? So in the next 2 months, you're going to get all the EMIs. So what is the gross operating cycle? 2 months and 17 days. Did I make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll go further, right? So this is the formula. Now this I have put just to make you aware that is tarah se calculate hota hai. Not important for you all. What is important for you all is to understand that there is something called as debtors conversion period and creditors deferral period. So now debtors conversion period is the time taken by the debtors, or your customers who bought your product from you at a credit, right? वो आपको कितनी देर में आपके पैसे वापस करते हैं, कितने दिनों में आपके पैसे वापस करते हैं, that is your debtors conversion period. The smaller it is, the better it is for you. The larger, the longer it is, sorry, not larger, the longer it is, it's not good for your company. You know, your money is blocked over there, right? So agar aapne you sold a product rupees 50,000 to a customer, and that customer says that, okay, I'm going to repay these 50,000 to you in 5 installments of 10,000 each. So that means he's going to pay you 50,000 in 5 months. So aapka wo some amount of money is blocked for 5 months. You know, your cash is blocked for 5 months. So your liquidity is blocked. Understood? Now, when we talk about credit deferral period, now credit deferral period is the average time taken by the firm in paying its suppliers. Now, I am the firm and I have bought raw material on credit from a supplier, right? So in how much time am I able to repay my supplier? जो भी मैंने उससे क्रेडिट लिया था रॉ मटेरियल के लिए, मैं कितनी देर में उसको वो क्रेडिट वो पैसे वापस कर रही हूँ, right? So now there are two perspectives to credit deferral period. The smaller it is, the better it is for the image of your company, because all the suppliers will feel कि यार ये जो बंदा है ना, ये पैसे जल्दी दे देता है रॉ मटेरियल के. The longer it is, you know, it is better for you as a company, because आपकी वो जो वर्किंग कैपिटल है, जो आपके पैसे हैं उस रॉ मटेरियल के, वो आप कहीं और यूटिलाइज कर सकते हो 2 महीने के लिए, और फिर 2 महीने बाद आप वो पैसे रॉ मटेरियल की पेमेंट कर दो. Understood? But the suppliers will feel that he takes a lot of time to pay my money. So again, you have to strike a balance. Yes, please. Someone was saying something.
I was just saying yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you understood my point of credit deferral period and debtors conversion period?
Yes, ma'am.
All of you all.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now there is another concept of, you know, permanent working capital. We'll quickly go through it. It's 8 o'clock. किस की मेस 9 बजे बंद हो जाती है? सबकी?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll speed up and I'll finish it. Okay. Don't worry. खाना सबको मिलेगा आज. So permanent working capital. Now it is the magnitude of current assets needed, increase and decrease with time. Now there is some amount of permanent working capital which is required. Rent देना है. You know, you have a building on rent. उसका rent देना ही देना है. That is your permanent liability which you have to pay every month. ठीक है, वो आपने देनी ही देनी है. You have to pay money to your suppliers for raw material. आपका fixed है कि हर महीने you will get 100 pieces of your raw material, whatever kind of raw material you have. That is the minimum quantity जो आपके पास आएगी ही आएगी. उसकी payment भी करनी है. That is also your minimum required. So whatever is minimum required current asset or current liability is your permanent working capital. मतलब उसके बिना your company cannot function. If that much of minimum fixed working capital you don't have, then that means you can't carry on the operations. You can't, you know, do your business operations, right? So it is the minimum level of required current assets which are continuously required by a firm to carry on its business operations. Whereas there is something known as variable working capital. Now, variable working capital is the extra working capital. Now, let's go back to our jackets wala company, right? So, you know, my working capital requirement would be the minimum, the least, you know, the minimum in summers. You know, कुछ लोग रखे हुए हैं जिनको रखना ही पड़ेगा, पैसे देने ही पड़ेंगे. You know, even if it is my season or it is not my season. So that is my minimum working capital required to carry on my operations. But when it is my season, I need to employ more workers, right? So when I employ more workers, so that means my requirement for working capital increases. But what is that? That is a seasonal change. That depends how is my sales going? My sales is going high up or my sales is going low. So that is when variable working capital comes into play, right? So that means, you know, you're producing more products. So that means you employ more people, you get a building on rent for some time to, to accommodate more people and, make them work. So that is where working capital comes into play. But that is again seasonal. So just look at this. This graph shows you the first graph shows you a company which is going at a particular pace. It is not growing, but usme working capital same reh rahi hai throughout. ठीक है? This is my fixed working capital requirement. And ये जो ऊपर curves बने हुए हैं, this is my temporary working capital requirement. This is changing every now and then. And you see the next graph. In this, you see that my fixed working capital is also going up. Now, this graph is for a growing company, a company which is expanding slowly and increasing its operations. So once you tend to increase your operations slowly and steadily, that means your fixed working capital and your temporary working capital also tends to go up. The graph tends to go up. So the main motive of showing you these two graphs were that your fixed working capital will always be a straight line if you're working at the same capacity, but your temporary or variable working capital will always be fluctuating. Did I make sense to you all?
Ma'am, please could you repeat that part? The fixed working capital will be same, but
Isha, I didn't understand.
ma'am, I was asking if could you repeat that again? The fixed will be the same, but what is the variable part that I didn't get?
Okay, the fixed working capital. Now look, come back here. The fixed or the permanent working capital is the minimum working capital required, right? It will remain the same through all the seasons of the company. Whatever may be the sales, it will remain the same. Itna to minimum chahiye hi chahiye, come what may. Even if all your operations are, for a halt, but you need to pay the rent of the building. You need to pay for the lease. If you've taken some machinery on lease, you have to pay the minimum electricity bills. So ये सब पैसे ये कहाँ से जाएगा सब कुछ? ये आपका जो भी बैंक में बैलेंस है उससे जाएगा सब कुछ, right? So these expenses have to be met. So you need to have certain amount of minimum working capital to meet those expenses.
Yes.
For even if for making your business stand. Right? If you plan to wind up your business, that's a different thing. But if you want your business to stand somewhere, you need a minimum amount of working capital. Now, that is your permanent working capital. Now, if the season changes and the demand for your product increases, right? So then you need to increase your working capital because you'll be employing more people. The machines would start to work. The electricity bill will increase. You might have to rent a new place, right, to accommodate your workers, right? So that will be your variable working capital, which changes with the sales or the demand of your product. Understood, Isha?
Yes.
So we come back here and we see that this straight line shows you the fixed working capital ki itni to working capital chahiye for my business to sustain, right? Agar itni working capital nahi hai, that means my business can't sustain because I don't have any money to pay my fixed bills. Now, I hope all of you know that electricity bill, एक minimum electricity bill, चाहे आप zero बिजली use करो, वो आएगा ही आएगा, right? Even if your business is closed. By closed, I mean that, all lights off, everything off. Still, you will get a minimum amount of electricity bill, which you have to pay, right? So that is a kind of maintenance charge which the electricity board takes from you. So that is what is the minimum money which you need to keep your business alive, right? So this line shows my permanent working capital, whereas my temporary working capital keeps going up and down with the seasonal changes, right? or yeah, mainly with the seasonal changes of the product or with the demand of the product. At times, the demand of my product is high up. At times, the demand of my product is not high up. So that depends. That is how my temporary working capital works. I'm still here. If anyone has any doubts, please ask me. Anyone? Can I go further then?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we have a very interesting concept of balancing working capital. हमने excessive working capital की बात करी, inadequate working capital की बात करी. अब हम बात करते हैं adequate working capital की, as to why do you need to actually balance your working capital? Now, there are certain dangers of having excess working capital. One is unnecessary accumulation of inventories. And the other one is, it indicates defective credit policy. Now, defective credit policy means that, a lot of money is blocked in your accounts receivable. Ab accounts receivable kya hota hai? Let me explain it to you. I sold my product worth rupees 5,000 to a customer. Okay. He said that I'm going to pay this money in a span of 1 month. ठीक है? तो वो जो 5,000 है वो मेरा किस में आएगा? अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल में. ये मैंने अभी पैसे लेने हैं लोगों से. तो क्या होगा? मेरे पैसे अकाउंट्स रिसीवेबल में ब्लॉक हो गए हैं वो 5,000. प्रोडक्ट मैंने सेल कर दी है, बट आई हैवंट अर्न्ड revenue out of it. That revenue has not come in my pocket. So what is happening? The money is blocked. My hard cash is blocked, right? So that indicates a slack in collection period. That means my credit policy, I mean the credit which I'm giving to my customers is defective. I need to bring down the time period. I should have told him that, okay, you take this product and you pay me the money in 10 or 15 days, right? So that I have cash in hand and I can, invest it somewhere else. Then is speculative profits. Now, speculative profits grow, leading to liberal dividend policies. Now, what happens is when you have excessive working capital, there are speculative profits wherein you think that, one second. Yeah. So speculative profits are the profits where, what happens is that when your working capital is excessive, right? And you have more and more of the amount blocked in your accounts receivable. And what happens in the end that you have bad debts. That person didn't give you 5,000 rupees. ऐसे बहुत होंगे जिसने आपको 5,000 नहीं दिया, 10,000 नहीं दिया. वो that person just eloped or something. What is happening? Your loss is happening. You are not getting your revenue. Now that you are not getting your revenue, what is happening? Your profits are going down. आपने अपनी तरफ से सेल कर दी, बट आपको भी पैसे नहीं आए हैं. महीने बाद वो पैसे नहीं देता, right? आपका 5,000 गया. You've lost that 5,000. That 5,000 should be deducted from your profits. Now, like this, I am talking about 1 month credit policy. Now, most of the companies have 90-day credit policy or 45-day credit policy. Now, say suppose customer who bought products worth rupees 5 lakhs, he went, that was a bad debt for you. Bad debt is that person didn't pay back money, right? So now what happened? You lost 5 lakh rupees, but the day you sold your product, you thought कि अच्छा यार 5 लाख रुपया कमा लिया मैंने. ठीक है, चलो अच्छी बात है, 5 लाख रुपया कमा लिया. That means 5 lakh is my additional profit. And it adds to your net profits and you give dividends based on your net profits. You start giving out dividends also. You've given out your dividends, you've done everything, but later you don't get money from that person. You don't get 5 lakhs from that person. What happens? You run into losses. Understood? Did I make sense to you all? Or should I explain?
Yes, ma'am.
Should I explain with one more example?
I understood, but I have a question. So in this case, the person is paying later, or they're just not paying at all?
No, the person is not paying at all. They have gone bad debt. By
Okay.
bad debt, I mean that the person has said that, sorry, I can't pay your money. All right. So those are bad debts. So that is clear loss for your company, right? So in a lot of cases, all these big concerns, like all these, let's talk about tractor manufacturers like Escorts or Swaraj, Mazda or Isuzu or Ashok Leyland. ये कोई ये थोड़ा है कि आज आपने रॉ मटेरियल किसी से लिया या आज आपने प्रोडक्ट किसी को बेचा एंड वो आपको पैसे उसी टाइम दे देगा. नो, एवरीवन बाइज इट ऑन EMIs. हम गाड़ी लेते हैं, हम लोन पे लेते हैं ना, वो तो बैंक दे देता है पैसे, या हम इंस्टॉलमेंट्स पे लेते हैं कि ठीक है हम इंस्टॉलमेंट्स में देते रहेंगे, राइट? तो वो लॉस किसका हो रही है एट द एंड? वो कंपनी का लॉस हो रहा है. बैड डेट्स कंपनी के लिए हैं वो, right? Until and unless you go to a bank and bank gives guarantee for you to the company, then that's a different thing. But if you're dealing directly with the company, then it's company's loss. 6 months के बाद you realize कि okay, वो 10 लाख की पेमेंट नहीं आएगी, वो bad debt हो गया, तो 10 लाख आपका तो लॉस हुआ ना, कंपनी का तो वो लॉस हुआ. Whereas 6 months you've been thinking that I am yet to get those 10 lakh rupees, and you keep on spending expenses, and you keep on paying dividends to your shareholders, and in the end you're left with nothing because that 10 lakh is not going to come to you, right? So what does this suggest? This also suggests managerial inefficiency, because there's a big loophole in your in your credit policy. So someone just asked me that management does a lot of goof ups while deciding the working capital of the company. So this is one major goof up with which the management does. They design the credit policy like this, and they show bad debts, and that money is used somewhere else. Who asked me that question? If I don't remember who asked me.
Mom, it was me.
Yeah, Ishan. So this is where goof ups happen. Itna abhi don't rub your gray cells too much for these goof ups. I am just answering Ishan's question. That goof ups happen. There are a lot of intricate points where goof ups happen, right? Then we go further and we talk about, one second. Yeah, we talk about dangers of inadequate working capital. Ab working capital hamare paas zyada nahi hai. In fact, we have inadequate working capital. Now, when we have inadequate working capital, that means we are going to be stagnant. Why we are going to be stagnant? Because we don't have enough money to invest in profitable projects, right? And we will have difficulty in operating our business because, again, we don't have enough money. So keep that in your mind that I don't have enough money. It's going to create problems in operations of the company. If you have a very good opportunity in hand, a very good project in hand, you can't take it up because you don't have enough money, right? They're going to be operating inefficiencies. Why? Because you really can't operate efficiently because you don't have enough cash to invest in efficient means of production, or you can't carry out your process efficiently. Your fixed assets are not efficiently utilized. That is one major danger of inadequate working capital. Now, why? अगर आपके पास adequate working capital नहीं होएगी, मशीनें 10 हैं, but you can pay salary to only 6 workers, your 4 machines will sit idle. So that means your fixed assets are not efficiently utilized. You are unaware, you are not able to avail attractive credit policies because people in the market know that you don't have enough cash to repay your loans. So you will not get good loans from banks, right? Because your credit worthiness is not good. And in the end, you lose your reputation because you will not be able to pay back your liabilities. Are we good till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then we have the determinants, as in, how we decide on what factors is the value of my working capital dependent, right? Number one is nature of business. अब nature of business में हमने अभी किया था manufacturing concern, service concern. Manufacturing concern में ज़्यादा working capital चाहिए, service concern में कम working capital चाहिए. Market and demand conditions. जब हमारी demand, हमारे product की demand बहुत ज़्यादा high है, then we need more working capital. But when it is a slow period for my product, then I don't need much working capital. Because the demand for my product is low, my production is going to be low, the demand for raw material is going to be low. And I can't store much of inventory because there is no demand for the product. Now is technology and manufacturing policy. Now, एक होती है labor intensive technology और एक होती है capital intensive technology. Labor intensive technology is where most of the work is done by the labor, right? Human resource. Whereas capital intensive technology is where most of the work is done by machinery. Now, depends, आप labor ज़्यादा employ कर रहे हो या आप ज़्यादा machinery employ कर रहे हो. Labor employ कर रहे हो तो आपको labor की salaries देनी पड़ेंगी. Whereas अगर आप machinery employ कर रहे हो, then you need to invest in good robotic machineries, good high-end machineries. Then we have is credit policy. Now, what kind of a credit policy do you have for your customers? By customers, I mean जिनको आप अपने goods बेचते हो, to whom you sell your products, right? What kind of a credit policy you offer to them? You offer a 45-day credit policy or you offer a 90-day credit policy. Now, if you're offering a 90-day credit policy, that means a longer period. That means you need more working capital. Because वहां पे आपके वो पैसे ब्लॉक हो जाएंगे, तो दूसरे काम करने के लिए और पैसे चाहिए. Whereas if it is a shorter period of credit policy, then you don't need much working capital because money is going to keep coming to you. Your revenues will come back to you quickly. Understood?
Yes,
Guys,
ma'am.
are you there with me?
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Then availability of credit from suppliers, जिनसे हम raw material खरीदते हैं. If they give us a longer period of credit, if I get a longer period of credit from my suppliers, I don't need much working capital. 6 महीने के बाद पैसे देने हैं उनको या 3 महीने के बाद पैसे देने हैं, it's okay. I can pick up the raw material, not pay for it, work on it, make a finished product, earn revenue from it, and then pay for my raw material. Right? So working capital उतनी नहीं चाहिए. Whereas if the availability of credit from my suppliers is for a shorter period, say what, 15 days, तो मैंने रॉ मटेरियल तो ले लिया, अभी तो उसके ऊपर काम चल रहा है, फिनिश प्रोडक्ट भी नहीं मेरा बना और मैंने रॉ मटेरियल के पैसे देने हैं. So I don't have any revenue in hand. I haven't sold the product, but then I need cash to pay for the raw material, right? So that depends upon the availability of credit from the suppliers. Then comes out to be is operating efficiency. How efficiently you can produce your product. Now, efficiency की terms में जब मैं बात करूं, तो now there are various processes to produce a product, right? There are various kinds of machinery to produce a product. एक machinery होएगी जो 100 पीस बनाएगी दिन के, एक machinery होएगी जो 50 पीस बनाएगी, right? Now depends what kind of machinery do you employ. And if it is very efficient, then you need lesser working capital. If it is less efficient, then you need more working capital. And price level changes. Now, price level changes are the price changes of your product. एक प्रोडक्ट पहले आप 50 रुपए का बेच रहे थे, अब उसकी प्राइस बढ़ के 100 रुपए हो गई है, तो आपका रेवेन्यू भी बढ़ रहा है ना. अगर 100 रुपए हो गया तो आपका रेवेन्यू बढ़ रहा है. रेवेन्यू इज व्हाट? हार्ड कैश फॉर यू. ठीक है? So you need less working capital. Whereas if your price is going down or staying stagnant, then you need more working capital because your revenue is the same or going down. Are we clear about these pointers? I know I have covered it quickly, but are we clear? Any point you feel, please ask me. Can I hear from you all? My silent
ma'am.
spectators.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
There are a lot of silent spectators in the class. Okay. ग्राफ की तरफ मत देखना, आप कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे. Now, 1 second. Now, there are few issues in working capital. As such, there are no issues in working capital. It is just, I am going to explain you what is conservative current asset policy and what is aggressive current asset policy. Now, current assets divided by fixed assets. Now, if the value is more than 1, right? That means your current assets are more than your fixed assets. That means you have better liquidity and less risk. क्योंकि आपकी liquidity बहुत अच्छी है, तो आपको risk बहुत कम होएगा. ठीक है, आपके पास बहुत cash है, cash in hand बहुत है, अच्छी liquidity है, risk कम है. But that is a very conservative credit policy, right? In that you can't be much profitable. Remember, if your current assets are higher, you have better liquidity, but you are compromising on your profits. When your current assets to fixed ratio is low, I would say less than 1, then your liquidity is poor and your risk is higher, but you might make good amount of profits, right? Though you are compromising with your credit worthiness, you are compromising with your liquidity position, but you might end up earning, remember, not always, but you might end up earning good amount of profits. So that is why you see over here that this is your fixed assets. Can you see the graph?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
these
ma'am.
are the fixed assets.
Yes, ma'am.
If your working capital, current assets, if your current assets are way higher than fixed assets, then it's a conservative policy. Because you have बहुत पैसा है, बहुत liquid cash है आपके पास, fixed assets तो इतने से, ये सारे current assets हैं. ठीक है, अगर आपके पास सिर्फ इतने से current assets हैं जो कि fixed assets से भी कम है, that means your liquidity position is very, very low, right? So again, you should always have an average current asset policy where your fixed assets and your current assets are, the ratio is equal to 1. It should not be too low. It should not be too high. Understood? But it should not always be 1. ऐसा भी नहीं है कि 1 ही चाहिए मुझे, हमें. ऐसा नहीं है. It should be almost equal. ग्राफ पढ़ने आते तो ये देखो, ये वाला डिस्टेंस और ये वाला डिस्टेंस ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल है. Almost, I would say just a little bit of difference. Understood? But yes, this is not that important. What is important is this: liquidity versus profitability. So I said that whenever you talk about working capital, you are playing with your profitability and your liquidity, right? A liquid firm has less risk of insolvency because a firm which has enough cash can always repay its liabilities, and it hardly experiences any cash shortage or stock out situation. होता नहीं है उसमें. Why? Because अगर stock out situation होने लगे, you pay for it and you get more stock, right? Now, if you need good amount of liquidity in your company, what is the cost associated with it? 1, you let go of your profits. You compromise on your profits. You have a lot of idle investments in current assets. I'm talking about when you need liquidity. Now, what are the costs associated with sound liquidity? हिंदी में अगर आपको अच्छी liquidity maintain करके रखनी है, तो उसके लिए आप क्या-क्या sacrifice कर रहे हो? आप अपनी profitability sacrifice कर रहे हो. आप अपने पैसों को बेफजूल में idly invest कर रहे हो, और आप firms के funds को tie up कर रहे हो एक ऐसी जगह पे जहां पे जरूरत नहीं है. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Now, to higher profitability, firm may sacrifice solvency and maintain a relatively low level of current assets. Now, this is the other way around. To increase the profitability, what will you do? You will decrease your liquidity a little bit. You will maintain a low level of current assets, but what will happen? You will sacrifice your solvency. You might not be able to pay your current liabilities. The profitability will improve, but the solvency will be threatened, and there will be greater risk of cash shortage or stockouts. So both ways, there is a well, and you're going to उसमें छलांग मारने वाली बात है. So again, you have to find out that break-even point. Now, again, I'm saying a new term, a break-even point where, you should just have the right amount of current assets where you can meet all your you can pay off all your current liabilities, and then you have sufficient cash to meet up any other requirements which are there in the company. Right? Now, all this process is done by the management. All the employees also, obviously, no management can work without the say of employees. Definitely the groundwork is done by employees, but the major decision stays with the management. Now, this is also called as, ये जो हमने पीछे slide करी है, इसके जो पहले दो points हैं, that is the cost of liquidity. What cost do you pay to maintain liquidity in your firm? And the last 2 points are the cost of illiquidity. By cost of illiquidity, I mean that what is the cost of maintaining lower liquidity? Now, the cost of lower liquidity is that you sacrifice your solvency position here, and you have greater risks of cash shortage and stockouts. Did I make sense to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we good this year?
Yes, ma'am.
So the working capital has great influence on the profitability and the solvency of the company. By solvency, I also mean liquidity. You increase the liquidity, the profitability will be affected. And if we decrease, the solvency will be, if we decrease it, the solvency will be affected. Did this statement make sense to you now? Guys, did this statement make sense to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
All of you all, just को नहीं sense बना रही, अभी भी पूछ लो. Okay, great. So that's all for working capital from my side. Any questions, please ask me. Yeah, Nishkarsh.
Ma'am, could you please send the previous session slide?
I sent it to all of you.
Ma'am, for the last session. Ma'am, it was
Nishkarsh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Come again.
For the last session, it wasn't sent by you, I think so, because students are also writing in the group that they haven't received the.
I think I sent. I'm going to check it with CTD. I will check it and I will send you. I'll send you this slide also, right? So, guys,
Okay,
I'm going to share a link in the chat box right now, which is the link to a case study. Somehow I couldn't copy that case study. I couldn't download it, right? So I am sending that link in the chat box. आप उसको डाउनलोड कर लो और उसको हम नेक्स्ट सेशन में करेंगे, एंड फ्रॉम नेक्स्ट सेशन वील हैव ऑफलाइन क्लासेस, राइट? No more of online, and we'll have offline, and I'll try and do your class on a Sunday. Sundays you don't have classes, right, in Thapar?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. No classes on Sunday.
Yeah, so we will, I'll see you on Sunday in the campus. We will do offline classes, and हमारा पिछला भी एक केस रहता है डिस्कस करना, कैपिटल बजट का.
Ma'am, by Sunday, do you mean like the tomorrow or like the next week Sunday?
Next week, Sunday, not tomorrow. Tomorrow is a session for another batch, right? So I'm talking about next week. From next week, we will have offline classes. Right. Yeah, that's all from my side for working capital. I'll share the link to the case study. Please make sure you study and come so that we can make the best out of whatever you have understood. Before leaving you, just 5 minutes for, I had this topic planned for today was your personal wealth management. How many of you are into investing? How many of you have your portfolios of your own?
Ma'am, I have small in the Bitcoin and Shibu.
No, I'm not talking about Bitcoin, guys. Anyone who has money in Bitcoin, we'll not bring it up over here. I'm talking about shares.
Nifty 50.
Nifty 50. Okay. Nishkash has been investing. Dasveer, what is your portfolio like?
Ma'am, in Sensex, there is a 20 company, and the top 10 companies are Reliance and SBI.
Okay. So how much have you invested?
Ma'am, 10,000.
10,000. Nishkash, how about you? What is your portfolio like?
Ma'am, my total portfolio is around 8,000 currently, and I have some shares of Yes Bank, some from Wellspun India, one few from Idea also, and one from Weber Global, and ma'am, some of Tata Steel.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else who's interested to invest or who's starting to invest? No one.
I want to, but I'm not confident and don't have the knowledge to how to do it.
Mom, I'm going to, but I'm not yet 18 yet.
Okay. Anyone else? So I heard from Amog and
Ma'am,
Okay.
I'm also going to. I'm still learning more.
Okay, so Japteshwar also says the same. First of all, I would want you to read this book. I think I haven't told you about this book. This book is Let's Talk Money by Monica Halan. Right? See if you get your hands on this book. This is easily available on Amazon. I repeat again, it's a very, very basic book for it's in a very layman language, and it explains to you about investing. It explains to you about insurance, very small details, and in a very layman's language. It is Let's Talk Money by Monica Halan. See, whenever you have time, give this book a read. It's a very good book on personal investments also, right? Now, there are certain personal financial management strategies which I follow and which all these financial people follow. Now, what are those financial strategies like that? Everyone gets a particular amount, a specific amount of money, even if you're getting your pocket money or you're getting your salary or you're in a business. Now, business may money keeps going, but you withdraw a certain amount of money every month. So that's your salary, right? So now you need to devise a budget for it. You need to make segments for it as to where to invest. You need to have an emergency fund. You need to know that, if there is any expense coming up, you need to save, right? So you need to devise all these things. Now, you also need, how many of you use a credit card? None of you. Okay. So we'll not get into the credit card part. Okay. So you always plan and save for the things coming up in the future, right? So that is a major part of your personal investment planning. How do you save and invest for your future uncertainties or future commitments which are coming? Now, you can invest in three kinds of investments, you can have three kinds of goals: short term, mid-term, and long term. Short term are like, you want to buy new shoes, you want to buy a phone. Those are your short term goals in a time span of 3-4 months. Then are your mid-term goals, right? Midterm goals are like, 2 years down the line, you have to take up a job. And after taking up a job, you have to buy a car to commute, right? Those are your midterm goals. And your long-term goals are, you want to go for a world tour or something. That would be your long-term goal. I'm giving you all hypothetical situations, right? Now you need to start saving for your short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. Now there are various kinds of investments in which you can invest your money to fulfill these goals, right? Now, what are your short-term goals can be met through your short-term investments. Now, short-term investments मैंने आपके साथ पहले भी डिस्कस किया था. बहुत तरह की होती हैं. There are also commercial papers also. There are some treasury bills also, which are of very less maturity period. I would not get into deeper details of what these short-term, long-term, and medium-term investments are like, right? I can share notes with you. क्या क्या होते हैं, फिर आप मेरे से अपने doubts पूछ लेना, since we are running short on time, right? So another thing is that you should always have liquid funds in hand. आपके पेरेंट्स के पास हमेशा लिक्विड फंड्स होते हैं, आपके पास हमेशा लिक्विड फंड्स होते हैं. Why? Because whenever any problem arises or anything happens, you should have money in your hand to, get through it, right? Now, there are various factors affecting the risk-taking ability. Like Amog said that, I am not sure about investing. You all are in the initial stage. I know you all are not earning. Whatever you're going to invest is through your savings, whatever savings you have, right? But you are the risk takers. You are the real risk takers. Why? Because no responsibility right now. Not any major uncertainty coming your way. You are not nearing your retirement stage. You don't have any medical expenses coming your way. You are in the peak of your life right now. So you are the real risk takers. So by this, on what does your risk-taking ability, on what factors does your risk-taking ability depend? It depends upon your income, your age, how many dependents do you have, as in how many kids do you have? You have parents, you have your grandparents, you're the sole breadwinner of the family, or, multiple things like that. And then how much debt do you have? Kitna karza hai aapke upar? How many liabilities do you have to pay back? And what is your area of work? Are you into a very good job? Are you into a business which is flourishing? Or are you into a business which is stagnant? So that is also one major part of your risk-taking ability. Now, I would suggest, finishing it off, I would suggest that, whenever you have to start investing, first of all, start keeping some amount of money aside. It can be as small as 500 rupees a month, right? Once you start putting that money aside and start investing in mutual funds, I did that, and I always suggest that because they are the safest options. Right? मैंने आपको पहले भी समझाया था कि म्यूचुअल फंड्स को कैसे एनालाइज करते हैं. I think we've discussed in the previous sessions, right? Start investing, get hold of a good mutual fund. There are a lot of websites who are talking about good mutual funds, right? Invest first 500, SIP पे ले लो उसको. SIP is small investment plans. Keep investing and see where it goes, right? And slowly, then you can build your portfolio, right? So that's how you start investing. But I would always suggest that start investing with mutual funds because they are a safer bet. If you want to invest in shares in stocks and equity and you're willing to take that much of risk, then you can invest in shares and equity also. I'm not a risk taker personally. If you are more than welcome to go and invest in shares. But I personally feel mutual funds are better. Any questions now?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, would you suggest investing in LIC IPO?
Sorry? LIC IPO?
LIC IPO.
Nishkash, actually, I haven't read about it. I would not suggest you anything wrong. I haven't read about it. But yes, if LIC is a good company, it's a good old company. It would be, I think it would be good to invest in LIC IPO. Paytm के IPO ने बहुत बड़ा धमाका किया था. But LIC IPO should go well.
Yes.
Isha, I can't hear you.
I remember the Paytm one.
Yeah, so Paytm IPO, in fact, honestly, I also invested in Paytm IPO, but it didn't hold up well for a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
So Paytm was not into the market for a longer period of time. But if you talk about LIC has been into the market for a long amount of time, long period of time, right? So that is one factor on which you analyze the company. A lot of people have put in their trust and faith in LIC. LIC has been the most talked about company in India, right? So yes, I believe, Nishkash, you can definitely invest in the IPO of LIC.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? Any questions, guys? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, we call it a day. You all run to your mess and have your dinner.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.